viewers. Today I'm going to talk about some emerging green shoots in the battle of United States versus the coronavirus. Today, the data has emerged that the number of deaths in the United States is slowing down. First day that it has come down. And in response to that, the stock market in the United States has gone up by 1,200 points. In fact, we have a few more minutes before it's going to close, but it's reasonable to assume that it's going to be a very good positive day today. And this has also come about because they are seeing that the number of incidences of coronavirus is going down in Europe also. So between Europe and United States, more or less, there is a correlation. And we are seeing that that is beginning to reflect in the confidence of the investor in the stock market. So stock market always will drop first and it will also recover first. So maybe a bottom has been called. We don't know for sure. However, people have said that there may be multiple numbers of bottoms before it starts again its way back up. Now, one of the challenges that small businesses such as PGurus is facing is that the number of applications that banks are receiving for loan assistance has overwhelmed the banks. In fact, many banks have not even opened their counter yet because their software is not ready. And this is going to play itself out hopefully in the next few days because it started on the 3rd of April and the Bank of America within 2 hours of the window opening was saying that we have already exceeded our limit as to how much we can disburse. And I believe the limit was $10 billion per bank. In fact, Wells Fargo today also said that they're also they've already run over the limit. Now, this is a challenge. So what the United States Senate and Congress is doing is they're going back to the drawing board and they're trying to figure out how to come up with the next, what they would call as the 4th stimulus package. Now, this is going to happen for a few more times before things stabilize. Remember, we have talked about this. So far, the United States has directly put in 2.2 trillion, but they're also doing cash infusions to the tune of about, I think about $1 trillion or so. And they intend to spend up to 6 trillion. And I think the number now is going even more than that, perhaps even up to 8 trillion. So this is the state of affairs as far as the United States is concerned. This could be the beginning of the recovery, or there could be one more or a few more bumps, because we don't know how this virus is going to get contained and then eventually disappear. We don't know yet. Although I must say that in states like California and Washington, it has stabilized a little bit, and the lockdown efforts are beginning to bear fruit. However, there are new hotspots emerging, Louisiana, for example, and also Michigan. So these are things that people are not expecting, and those also, they are just beginning to start testing in these areas. In fact, there are some areas in the United States that have not been tested at all. So there is a huge, state-to-state variation in how this thing has happened. We have to wait and see how that plays out. But let's get to the main core of the issue. What is going to happen between United States and China and the relationship that was there? There was already tariff wars brewing. Stage 1 of the tariff agreement was supposed to have been signed. We don't know what happened with that, although we do know that China agreed to take some soybean shipments from the United States as a relief to the US farmer. And Trump is very keen that US get back to work because no sitting president has ever won a re-election on a faltering economy. And today, this is going to be Trump's biggest challenge, that the economy may not come back fast enough for him to get re-elected to the White House. So what do you think he will be doing? This is my guess. I could be wrong. But I think one of the cards that Trump still has that he hasn't played is the relationship that the United States enjoys with Hong Kong. You see, what had happened was in 1898, Queen Victoria leased for 99 years Hong Kong area and what is called as new territories for a 99-year lease from China. This happened after the British defeated China in the tea and the opium wars, and China said, okay, fine, we will allow you to have this. I think around the same time, the US, or maybe a little bit before that, they also had access to Singapore. Remember, this is an adage that has stayed true even today. The country that controls the seas rules the world. It used to be Britain, now it is United States, ergo. So, so as part of that agreement, as the 99-year lease was coming to an end, let's say that was going to end in 1997, China started making noises about 10, 15 years before that, saying that we are not going to extend this, we are not going to renew this, we are not going to extend it, we are going to get Hong Kong back. Remember, at that point, Hong Kong was like an island, a paradise, because the rest of China was still scrambling. It's not China of today. So in 1992, the United States stepped in and made an agreement with Hong Kong. And it said that Hong Kong dollar, HKD, would be pegged to the US dollar, and it would be moving in a small range between 7.75 Hong Kong dollars to 7.85 Hong Kong dollars. Very, very narrow range. Now, this was a treaty that the United States signed with Hong Kong, and the treaty says that the United States will review this at the end of every year. Like if I just look up the Hong Kong dollar to US dollar exchange rate today, it stands at 7.75. Now, but what is going to happen if Trump decides to change this? Then let's go back a step and see what has been happening in China in 2019 and 2018. That's when China started slowing down. Now, China's exchange rate with the United States is also pegged. It was around 6.32 for the longest time, or 6 to 6.32 for the longest time. And then when business palpably slowed in 2018 and 2019, China allowed its currency to depreciate. And now it is around 7.08 renminbi to a US dollar. It must be borne in mind that for the most part, the commerce that used to flow over the last 30 odd years was through Hong Kong. In other words, all the manufacturing that got done in China would proceed from there, come to Hong Kong port, and then get shipped out from there. Hong Kong port was the busiest port in the whole world for the longest time. Until last few years, China has started building ports on the mainland itself, thus rendering the role of Hong Kong lesser and lesser. If they had the choice, what they would like to do is to have Hong Kong's HKD go away completely, thereby forcing the United States and the rest of the world to deal with renminbi as the only currency for the whole of China, including Hong Kong. However, Hong Kong was almost always the buffer zone that even the millionaires and billionaires of China use to park their wealth. So today, the result of that is that Hong Kong has the highest real estate value today. It's not that it's got something special. It's just that the money of the Chinese billionaires and millionaires is parked there. However, let's see what happened in 2018 and 2019. Because China was faltering on its exports, the yuan was threatening to get devalued. In order to shore it up, just like the way India is doing today, the Chinese government started buying US dollars to try and shore up the renminbi. Anybody who wanted dollars, they were taking it out of their assets. And in the process, they ended up giving $1 trillion of their reserves. Now there is not much money left in China. So China will not be able to prop up the renminbi anymore should there be a problem with their exports. Now in all this scenario, now see how this virus has played. Now, one of the things that everybody is awestruck is how is it that the virus struck only Wuhan and the rest of the China seems to have been spared? And how is it that about 7 to 8 million mobile phones stopped functioning recently? Does that mean that that many people died in Wuhan? We don't know the actual number, so we'll know that only later. But there were also reports that the virus struck Shanghai and Beijing, but nowhere close to the devastation that happened in Wuhan, which begs the question, if there is a pandemic, should it not affect the whole of China? How is it that it's only affected a few places? The most important thing, why US is reeling and why in particular New York is reeling, is that between, I think, let's say the last 3 months, okay, 400,000 people have returned from China, especially from the Wuhan area, into the United States. And it is very possible that many of them were corona positive. And that's why now you suddenly see this outbreak of pandemic in New York, especially because New York is the business headquarters. Whether this is a lab-produced pandemic or it happened because of the eating habits of Chinese, but we have to remember that China has been eating bats for a long, long time. They've had famines like you wouldn't believe it. They ate their cows one time. Their pigs had to be killed because of, I think, swine flu, and so on and so forth. So China goes through massive food upheavals, food shortages and upheavals. So they basically will eat anything. Those things will have to change, of course. They need to revert to more healthy eating habits. And rice is their primary staple food. And it's with rice that you have to add other things to eat. It's just like in India. So we have to see how this Hong Kong conundrum, because remember, there were a lot of protests in Hong Kong. Why were there protests in Hong Kong? Because the Chinese were tightening the laws of Hong Kong. In fact, there was one draconian law that was passed that said that any person found to be in infraction of law in China would be deemed to have done the same thing in Hong Kong. For example, in China, there is no free speech. So what it was implying was if anybody protests in Hong Kong, they would also be liable to be tried under the mainland China law. The people in Hong Kong consider themselves as special, and they have every reason to be. I mean, they have been exposed to democracy. They have been, that there are close to 85,000 United States citizens today working in Hong Kong, living and working in Hong Kong. Likewise, in 1947, a lot of rich Sindhi businessmen who fled from Pakistan, they went to three places. They went to Mumbai, they went to Dubai, and they went to Hong Kong. So there are a lot of Indian origin businessmen who are settled in Hong Kong. I'm sure there are thousands of Britons who are also living in Hong Kong. So Hong Kong has a special status. However, if Trump were to decide to re-look at that relationship that the United States has with Hong Kong, that could set off a bee's hornet, and this could, start snowballing into a much bigger problem, because today China is completely vulnerable. They don't know where their next export is going to happen, although now they are saying that they're exporting a lot of things to medical supplies and so on. So that begs the question, when the West has collected itself, it might ask, so you induce the virus first and then you also sell us the cure. I mean, that's not going to it's not going to attract a lot of takers. So there is going to be some correction. There is going to be some sort of a trial, if you will, in an international court of what happened in China. People would want to get to the bottom of it. Whether China will allow it or not, we have to wait and see. However, the most important thing is United States seems to have got control over the pandemic in United States. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe to PGurus channel.